Good morning, all of you. We are going to discuss the next bone. We are done with clavicle, scapula, and then we are now moving to humerus. So, where does exactly the humerus is situated? Let us see. This is clavicle. We have seen already scapula behind. So, in the upper limb, if you observe, so the extent what you see from the upper end of the shoulder to the elbow, it is called as arm, and from the elbow to the wrist, it is called as forearm. So, this is the bone of arm. Humerus is the bone of arm. So like any other long bone, it has upper end, shaft, and lower end. So in the upper end, you can see the head of the humerus is articulating with the glenoid cavity of the scapula, which you should have learned yesterday, to form the shoulder joint. As you come, this is shaft of the bone, and this is the lower end of the humerus. Lower end of the humerus is articulating with forearm bones. What are the forearm bones? We have medially, we have ulna, and laterally we have radius. Okay, so upper end of the radius ulna and lower end of the humerus, they articulate to form elbow joint. So humerus proximally it forms shoulder joint, distally it takes part in the formation of proximally shoulder and distally elbow joint. Okay, this picture further highlights the things like this is the humerus. You see, this is the head of the humerus fixed in the glenoid cavity to form the shoulder joint. This is the anterior view of the bone. Okay, so in the anterior view, you are finding this neck which is surrounding the head immediately. You call it as anatomical neck. Immediately below the anatomical neck in the upper end, we find two elevations. One is the one which is little lateral. You can call it as the greater tubercle, and then we have lesser tubercle. This is the anterior view. Okay, and this is the right humerus, what you are seeing on the screen. Okay, so we have greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, and in between the greater and lesser tubercle, you are finding one sulcus. You call it as bicipital groove, also called as intertubercular sulcus. As you come down, so at the junction of this whole upper end with this shaft, this particular neck is called as surgical neck. The surgical neck is so called because it is prone for fractures when the person is falling on outstretched hand. So overall, this head, anatomical neck, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, intertubercular sulcus, this is all discussed now, going to be discussed on upper end. And from this point, lower down, this whole area is shaft, and then we have lower end of the bone with certain features like, so in the lower end, you are finding two projections, one on the medial side, the other on the lateral side. This is medial epicondyle. Laterally, you call it as lateral epicondyle. Between the two condyles, we are finding two bony projections. One is capitulum laterally and trochlea medially. Okay, then of course, we have two depressions also. Above the capitulum, we have the radial fossa, and above trochlea, we have coronoid fossa. Okay, coronoid fossa and radial fossa. Then, as you see, this is the posterior aspect, and I told you this is right humerus. Okay, then, like if you observe here in the middle of the shaft, you have a bony elevation which is deltoid tuberosity, deltoid tuberosity. And here you are finding there is one groove called as radial groove or spiral groove, which gives passage to radial nerve. Now, when you come to the lower end of the humerus, we already know these two projections are near to the midline, you call it as medial epicondyle. Away from midline, you call it as lateral epicondyle. And on the posterior aspect, you are finding one big depression, like big like fossa over there. You call it as olecranon fossa. So olecranon fossa is actually articulating with the olecranon process of ulna, which we will be discussing as we proceed with the radius ulna bones. Okay, so these are the articulations for the purpose of elbow joint in the lower end. Now, if you observe like the bony features of this bone, I told you it has in the upper end head, then anatomical neck, then greater tubercle, lesser tubercle. Between the two tubercles, we have intertubercular sulcus, also called as bicipital groove. And here in red color, we are shown epiphyseal line. Epiphyseal line in the sense the line along which the bone is growing as long as the epiphyseal cartilage is present. Okay, Then this whole thing is shaft, and the shaft is showing certain borders. The sharp thing, whatever you see in the bone, is actually called as border. So we have medial border, okay. And of course, here we also one more border will be there. That will be the lateral border, which you can see further clearly here. So this is medial border near the midline, lateral border away from the midline, okay. Like that we will discuss with much better pictures. I'll try my level best to make you understand, okay. And this bony projection is deltoid tuberosity, which is seen in the middle of the shaft. This is anterior view of the bone, this is posterior view of the bone. How to identify anterior end? See, upper end, greater lesser tubercles and intertubercular sulcus is one feature. When you come to the lower end, you have to check for medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle, capitulum, trochlea. And above the trochlea, we have coronoid fossa. Above the capitulum, we have radial fossa. See, these features will make us identify the bone as the anterior aspect of the humerus, and which will also help us to identify whether it is belonging to right or left side. Okay, you have to face like keep these features in the anterior aspect. Head should be directed medially because it is articulating with glenoid cavity. When you just turn the bone and see from the posterior aspect, you have to, the easy feature what you have to identify is this, like olecranon fossa, which is quite big depression which is seen from behind. Okay, and of course deltoid tuberosity is seen in the middle of the shaft, no, laterally, so it is seen from both the aspects. Okay, and we also should check for this groove for radial nerve, which is called as spiral groove or radial groove. Okay, so here in the lower end also we are shown one more epiphyseal line, okay, along which the bone is growing and gradually meeting the other parts of the bone. Now, as you proceed with the classes, once you finish osteology, you will come across a topic called as brachial plexus. So that is nothing but the network of nerves which is actually starting from the cervical part of the spinal cord. That network will enter into the upper limb. Okay, brachium means hand and the plexus is brachial plexus, which you will study as a separate lecture separately, nothing to worry. So here from the brachial plexus, we have three important nerves coming and they are closely related to humerus bone. See, the one which is related to the surgical neck of the humerus is axillary nerve, and the nerve which is closely related to the spiral groove or radial groove is radial nerve, and the one which is related to the posterior aspect of the medial condyle, you call it as ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve. So all these nerves are clinically important because suppose if the fracture, suppose if the person is falling on outstretched hand, he met with an accident, you will see axillary nerve is damaged here in the surgical neck of the humerus. Okay, radial nerve may be damaged if there is any fracture of the shaft. Okay, and ulnar nerve may be damaged if there is any fracture along the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Like that. So whatever muscle supplied by these nerves will be paralyzed. If I introduce the muscles names, it becomes too much and you may find it tough, nothing to worry. So once you learn brachial plexus, automatically you will learn everything. Okay. So these are different pictures from different textbooks. Okay, the axillary nerve around the surgical neck of the humerus, radial nerve is seen in the radial groove, ulnar nerve behind the medial epicondyle. It is labeled. Okay. So this is the fracture what you are finding at the lower end of the humerus. Okay. Now, so different pictures are for the same bone. Now, because you got some concept and idea about, we will now proceed about humerus. So it is long bone, as you can see, because it has upper end, lower end and shaft. Okay. So upper end it has head, then it has one anatomical neck and surgical neck. The big rounded elevation is greater tubercle. Comparatively smaller elevation is lesser tubercle, and in between we have intertubercular sulcus. When you just look at the head, it is quite smooth and rounded and it forms less than half of the sphere. It is directed medially, backwards and upwards. We know it is articulating with glenoid cavity, isn't it? See, this is rounded, okay, like it is directed medially and it is fixing in the glenoid cavity of the scapula bone to form the shoulder joint. Okay, that is the glenohumeral, also called as the shoulder joint. Okay, then. So this is like upper end, which is further defined here. See, what are we finding at the upper end? See, this is the head of the humerus. We have, this is anatomical neck. Okay, this big elevation is greater tubercle, little smaller one is lesser tubercle, and this is intertubercular sulcus. Okay, immediately surrounding the head you have anatomical neck, and at the junction of the shaft and upper end we have surgical neck. Okay. So pictures have been taken from different Grey's Anatomy, BDC, and also from Chaurasia to make you understand. Okay, this is head, which is quite smooth, covered with hyaline cartilage, also called as articular cartilage. Immediately surrounding the head, we have anatomical neck. Okay, and this is the greater tubercle. This is lesser tubercle. This is intertubercular sulcus, also called as bicipital groove. Okay, this becomes the surgical neck, isn't it? Anatomical is the one which is immediately surrounding the head. Okay, I told you behind you, you have a very big fossa, right? That is the olecranon fossa. Okay, now coming to the lower end. See, for lower end, I will show you one little better picture before I take you to the lower end. Yeah. See, this is the lower end of the humerus, which is seen from anterior aspect. So in the lower end, you are finding two condyles. Like suppose the head is pointing this side. This is the right humerus. Same is continued. Medially, you are finding a projection, that is medial epicondyle. Laterally, you are finding a projection. You call it as lateral epicondyle. Okay, these are non-articular. They do not take part in the formation of elbow joint. Whereas you are finding a pulley shaped structure, that is trochlea, and elevated cap-like structure, that is capitulum. The area above trochlea, you call it as coronoid fossa. Area above capitulum is radial fossa. Okay, coronoid fossa is the place where you will see the coronoid process of ulna comes and fixes whenever the elbow is flexed. Similarly, radial fossa is the place where head of the radius comes and fixes when the elbow is flexed again. This we will teach you again when we are doing elbow joint. This is the posterior view of the humerus. Okay, and you are finding, I told you, you have to check for a big depression behind, that is the olecranon fossa. Olecranon fossa is actually taking, when the elbow is extended, the olecranon process of the ulna comes and fixes in the olecranon fossa. Okay. In the next class, when we discuss with radius and ulna, you will come to know about these names of the bones ulna and radius. Okay. So nothing to worry. Then now coming to lower end. So as just you have seen, it has like projection, which is cap-like projection. I told you it is capitulum. Okay, lateral round convex projection, trochlea, which is pulley shaped. Okay, then a radial fossa is present above the capitulum. Coronoid fossa is present above the trochlea. And the most projected pointed area is medial epicondyle. And then laterally we have lateral epicondyle. Okay. Olecranon fossa, I told you it is present on posterior aspect. That is behind above the trochlea. This is the olecranon fossa, which you see from posterior aspect. Okay. Then this is shaft. Okay, that means the area between the upper end and lower end, whatever is there in the center, you call it as shaft. Okay, then it is cylindrical in the upper half and it is flattened anteroposteriorly in lower half. It's better you have bones while you are studying this osteology. You can buy bone set from any surgical shop. Usually we find in any of your native places, you find out where you get the skeleton. Half the skeleton you can buy and you can take the help of bones while studying the osteology so that it makes your understanding easy and learning simple. Okay. And then anatomical position, I told you we should hold the bone vertically in such a way that head is pointing upwards, faces medially, backwards and upwards. Okay. Then lesser tubercle is actually medial and greater tubercle is little lateral, and in between you have intertubercular sulcus. Olecranon fossa, I said it has to come behind posteriorly. That will help you to rule out which is anterior surface of the bone and which is posterior surface. Okay, then upper end of the humerus, you can see it is round and it forms 1/3 of the sphere. It is covered by hyaline cartilage, which is thicker in the center and thinner at the periphery. Then immediately surrounding the head, whatever neck you are finding, that is anatomical neck, which is constriction at the margins of the rounded head. So anatomical neck, so usually it contains the attachments of the capsular ligament of shoulder joint. For now, you just remember this. Then we have surgical neck, which is the constriction in the upper end of the shaft below greater and lesser tubercles, okay, below the epiphyseal line. So surgical neck is related to axillary nerve, and also it is related to posterior and anterior circumflex humeral vessels. Then morphological neck, junction between diaphysis and epiphysis is generally called as morphological neck. So what is diaphysis? The place where you will see the center of the bone is diaphysis, okay, ends of the bone is epiphysis, and the junction of diaphysis and epiphysis is metaphysis. Okay, so the junction of diaphysis and epiphysis, at that point we have morphological neck. Okay, then greater tubercle, I told you a little bit bigger projection is greater tubercle. So the greater tubercle is this one laterally present. It is posterior superiorly, like it is aspect. It bears three flattened facets like we have. You just remember here three muscles are coming and taking their insertions, which are shown in blue color. These muscles you have studied, origin has come from scapula. Okay, insertion now you are finding on the greater tubercle of the humerus. You just use the word sit, S-I-T, sit for easy remembrance. So you have supraspinatus, infraspinatus and teres minor. They get inserted on the greater tubercle of the humerus. Okay, then comparatively smaller elevation what we have in front, which is more medial. Here you will see one more muscle comes. Actually the origin has again in the subscapular fossa, what you have seen in the scapula bone. Insertion is here in the lesser tubercle. You will see subscapularis muscle. Now, I told you we have intertubercular sulcus, isn't it? So, intertubercular sulcus has medial lip and lateral lip. So, this intertubercular sulcus on the medial lip, it is receiving the insertion of teres major, and laterally it is receiving the insertion of pectoralis major. And in the floor of this intertubercular sulcus, also called as bicipital groove, we see the insertion of muscle latissimus dorsi. So all these are shown in blue color because most of these muscles have taken their origin from scapula, what you have learned yesterday. Okay, then so this is the bicipital groove. I already told you it is receiving the insertion of latissimus dorsi. Okay, it's a vertical groove between the greater and lesser tubercles. And you also remember like this long head of biceps is actually passing through this bicipital groove, and that long head of biceps is actually covered with synovial sheath. Okay, rest I already told you. Middle lip of bicipital groove receives the insertion of teres major. Lateral lip of bicipital groove receives the insertion of pectoralis major. And in the floor we have latissimus dorsi. So you can just remember there is a mnemonic for this: lady between two majors. Okay, that means L is latissimus dorsi and medially the major is teres major, laterally the major is pectoralis major. So in between two majors, lady is nothing but latissimus dorsi. Okay, now after you know the upper end, we will now try to come to shaft. So when you talk about shaft, you have to know the borders. What are the various borders it has? We know this is the upper end of the bone, this is the lower end of the bone, and this whole thing is shaft. So when you talk about shaft, the borders are, it has one medial border, okay, and the other border we have is away from the midline is lateral border, near to the midline is medial border, okay. Then, so when you just look into this bone, this is head Anatomical neck, greater tubercle and lesser tubercle. I told you this is the medial lip of the bicipital groove. This is the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. Continuation of the medial lip of the bicipital groove, you are just seeing this is the medial border. Lower down, it is continuing as medial supracondylar line. Medial supracondylar line. So this is medial border. Apart, just adjacent to the medial border in front, we also have anterior border. Anterior border is in continuation with the lateral lip of the bicipital groove. This is the greater tubercle. Okay, medial border of the greater tubercle, then lateral lip of the bicipital groove, whatever sharp border, if you can feel the bone, if you have bone with you, you can feel it. Okay, this is the anterior border, which is almost ending between the capitulum and trochlea. Okay, so we have medial border, we have anterior border. Now when you see from the posterior aspect, the lateral border becomes very clear. Okay, so here again the border which is seen on the most lateral aspect of the bone, which is continuing as the lateral supracondylar line of the humerus, this whole thing is the lateral border. So how many borders we saw now? 3 borders. Okay, near to the midline, medial border, away from the midline, lateral border, and in the middle, right in front is the anterior border. Now let us see what are the various surfaces we have. So between the medial border and anterior border, the surface is anteromedial surface. Between the anterior border and the lateral border, we have anterolateral surface, and between the medial and lateral border, we have posterior surface. So we have 3 borders and 3 surfaces related to the shaft of humerus. Okay, the same thing is texted, and it becomes too much if I just read it for you. You just try to read from the textbook understanding this diagram. Pause the video, try to learn the borders, surfaces, and then read for yourself. You will definitely understand. Okay, then what is the name of the tuberosity? I said middle of the shaft. We have deltoid tuberosity. Okay, now all these borders and surfaces are described. So then comes the lower end. Before I take you to the lower end, I will also try to take you to the muscle attachments. So with the pictures, uh, yeah, yeah. See here. This, okay, I will take you to the same picture where we were. Okay. Now see here, you don't need to get confused in fact. So this is, first we will see the anterior aspect, then we will go to the posterior aspect. Okay. So what are the various muscles we have seen in the anterior aspect? I said in the upper end, lady between two majors, okay, that is the teres major, pectoralis major, latissimus dorsi. Over the deltoid tuberosity, we will see the insertion of deltoid muscle. Quite opposite to deltoid, we will see the insertion of coracobrachialis. In the lower one third of the shaft, we will see the origin of brachialis muscle. Brachialis is one of the muscles of the arm. Okay, then now as you go down, you are finding in the, I told you on the medial, if you identify head, this becomes medial epicondyle correspondingly, because this is medial end. So let us see the attachments on the medial end. From the medial epicondyle, all flexor muscles of the forearm are taking their origin. You call it as common flexor origin. Okay, just above that, you are also finding the origin of pronator teres. This is medial supracondylar line. Now, when you see the lateral supracondylar line, you have three like muscle attachments you can see here. The origin of brachioradialis. Below this, you are finding the origin of extensor carpi radialis longus. Below that, from the lateral epicondyle, we are finding common extensor origin. Capitulum and trochlea is shown in blue color because it is covered with hyaline cartilage. Okay. Then now let us see the attachments on the posterior aspect. Okay, then you can see on the posterior aspect, I told you this is spiral groove which is related to radial nerve. Above the spiral groove, you are seeing the attachment of lateral head of triceps, origin of lateral head of triceps, and below, like whole of the posterior surface, below the spiral groove, it is giving origin to medial head of triceps. Okay, then on the posterior aspect, we know we have olecranon fossa. Okay, so we know like if head is there, this will be the medial epicondyle. Obviously, this will be the lateral epicondyle. So on the posterior aspect of the lateral epicondyle, we will see the origin of anconeus muscle. So now this lower end is described once again. I have already explained you. See, this is the medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle, which do not take part in the formation of elbow joint. Medially, we have trochlea. Laterally, we have capitulum. Above trochlea, we have coronoid fossa. Above capitulum, we have radial fossa. When we see from behind, that is posterior view of the lower end of the humerus, one big fossa is there. That is olecranon fossa for the olecranon process of the ulna bone. Okay, so this is whatever I told you is described in words. Okay, you can just pause and read the points if you want when you are just learning from the video. So lower end, whatever has been shown with blue color, that shows it is covered with hyaline cartilage, the capitulum trochlea. Similarly, upper end, this is radius bone, this is ulna bone. I told you this is right side, isn't it? So here upper end of the ulna and also the upper end of the radius is also shown with hyaline cartilage, because these are the areas which participate in the formation of elbow joint. Okay, now for your better understanding, in fact, actually, just not to, maybe you find these names like coronoid fossa, radial fossa, you are also finding now this medial bone is ulna bone, lateral bone is radius bone. So this projection of the ulna is coronoid process. So when you are flexing your elbow, you can flex for yourself and feel this coronoid process comes and fixes in coronoid fossa. Similarly, when you are flexing the elbow joint head of the radius, it comes and fixes in the radial fossa. Okay, when you see the ulna bone from behind, we have olecranon process. This olecranon process comes and fixes in the olecranon fossa when the elbow is extended. Extension of elbow, you find this type of articulation. Okay, you can just pause the video and see what are the important labelings we have here, which I have described many times. This is anterior view, this is posterior view. Okay, this is the lower end of the humerus and this is the upper end of the ulna and upper end of the radius. These are the bones which are participating in the formation of the elbow joint. Of course, muscle attachments I told you. I hope you understood the bone. Now read for yourself slowly so that you understand better. Now let us see the ossification. The site of ossification, like for the shaft, the primary ossification center appears during 8th week of intrauterine life. For the upper end, we have ossification centers formed for head at first year, greater tubercle third year, and lesser tubercle fifth year. They all fuse together at 7th year to form conjoint upper epiphysis, which I have shown in red color in the first slide. So overall, the upper end is going and meeting with the shaft by 20th year. Lower end, you will see the ossification centers are appearing for the trochlea, lateral epicondyle, capitulum, trochlea, medial and lateral epicondyles, which appear by 2nd, 10th and 12th years, and finally they all fuse together by 14th year. Okay, and usually like for medial epicondyle they appear at 6th year. So whole of this lower end, they form as a single bone, they join with shaft by 16th or 17th year. So like medial epicondyle and the lower epiphysis goes and fuses with the shaft by 18th year. So whichever is joining late, like suppose upper end is going and joining with the shaft by 20th year, whole lower end is going and joining with shaft by 18th year. That means upper end is the growing end of the bone because it is going and fusing with the shaft by 20th year. Now let us see what is the clinical aspect we find in the humerus. The common site of fracture of humerus is surgical neck. It can be shaft or supracondylar region. Humerus has poor blood supply at the junction of its upper and middle thirds. So fracture at this side, because of the poor blood supply, they usually do not fuse fast. They show delayed union or non-union. So this picture helps you to understand, like, if there is any road traffic accident or any injury after old age, osteoporosis, there may be fracture like this. Then based on its direction, it can be either transverse or oblique or spiral. Okay. So there may be a condition like I told you, spiral groove is related to radial nerve, and the radial nerve may be entrapped in the fracture segments. Like this is one upper end and lower end, right, of the shaft. So the radial nerve can get entrapped. Radial nerve is actually supplying triceps muscle, what we just studied, and all extensor compartment muscle of forearm. So these muscles will get paralyzed in such fractures where radial nerve is damaged. So distal end of the humerus also you are finding supracondylar fracture. Medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle, here the lower end of the humerus, you can see distal humerus fracture. Okay, usually in the elbow joint x-ray we find such type of things. Okay, so generally if the fractures are like this, we use like different types of fixations. This is open reduction. Okay, so we are making use of special like screws to fix the bone back to its normal position. So this is also one of the fracture of the X-ray which is showing the fracture of shaft. This X-ray is showing you the fracture of upper end of the humerus where the neck, surgical neck is fractured, isn't it? This here you are finding lower end of the humerus is fractured. Okay, the supracondylar area. I hope you understood. Okay, keep studying, keep working hard. All the best. Thank you.